This world needs courageous people that will step up and step out and go do something profound. And that's why I spend so much of my time on the courage component of those 5 pillars, because I think we're missing the heroes right now.
Well, speaking of heroes, and I've heard this story and I love it. You know, we share a common, like, we've done a lot of work in West Africa, different countries, but like, so towards the very end, right, you're getting close to the deadline, like 2020, December 31st, you're getting close to that date, and you decide to get on a raft or a boat. So talk about that story and why, because it really relates to the courage and the vision, the clarity that you created around this whole project, and
Yeah.
how it culminated in you as the leader, like really putting yourself out there in a very courageous way. So talk about that story and how it ended up.
Yeah, well, thanks for bringing that up. I didn't know we were going to talk about today, and yeah, it's one of the most, I guess, exciting and challenging chapters in my life. So, just for those listening, so the Last Well was a nonprofit to reach the entire country of Liberia with clean water.
Let me stop you quick. So,
Yeah,
guys, as you're listening to this, like, I know it's a slight tangent in terms of, like, we're not talking about fitness, we're not talking about, specifically mindset mastery or coaching, but follow along in terms of, like, his clarity, his courage, his influence, right? The things that he's talking about, the mindset he had throughout this. Because I promise you, everything that he's teaching is in this story. So let's continue. But I just want you guys to go into the story with an understanding, like, you're about to hear firsthand how all these things are playing out in his life. Go ahead.
thanks, Barton. Yeah, so we had the mission was started in 2009 and was to go through 2020. So it was a 12-year mission. Built into the mission was an end date. And I want people to hear that, right? Not all missions have that, mission statements, but we had an end date in mind, and I did that on purpose. I wanted to, at the time we even started, it was a little early on, but I still had these 5 pillars in my head, right? Clarity, energy, courage, productivity, influence. And I keep saying that, I'm doing that on purpose. Because what I want people to do is when they leave this, this podcast, to think about, where is my clarity? Am I courageous, right? And on and on and on. So we were about 10 years into a 12-year mission. And it was extremely clear with my board of directors and the staff that we were not going to reach the finish line of this 12-year, what turned out to be a $31 million project. And we were falling short with the finances. And the board got together, and I said, listen, and they actually, this is interesting. Several of the board members almost tried to push a vote that we push the date, the end date. And I was like, no, it's
Back
December
farther.
31st. Yeah, 2020, not 21, 22, 23. Yeah, this is 2020. So I fought very hard for that. And they said, okay, well, we're not going to make it. So you've got your date. We're not going to vote it out. We're going to keep the mission. What are we going to do about it? And there's a whole long story to this, but basically, we started talking about this idea of, okay, what can we do in the United States as a fundraiser that really stands out, that can really, get some attention, hopefully on a national media level, right? So I said something like, wouldn't it be fun, like Leonardo DiCaprio, Titanic, floating on that door, that piece of wood at the end of Titanic, the movie. And I said, what if somebody just floated on a raft in the middle of Lake Ray Hubbard in East Dallas and just kind of stayed there until we raised whatever money we needed? And they all said, that's great. And I said, you know what? Each one of us could take a day at a time. So there's 11 of us. And so if we go past 11 days, I'll come back on there on the 12th day, and then the next person. And they all said, no, none of us are going to do that. We all vote you to do that by yourself unanimously. And what was funny about it is the whole thing was, we have water, they don't, meaning Liberia, and that's not okay. We have water, they don't, that's not okay. And so we decided to float on the lake where a lot of the drinking water came in East Dallas. So they voted that I would be on on the raft. We built a 20 by 20 raft. It had a tent on it. It had a small generator on it. It was made of aluminum and wood. And that was pretty much it. And so I had a small generator to internet and phone power and stuff like that. And then this tent was on there, and we stuck it out in the middle of the lake and tossed some anchors down on 3 out of 4 sides of the of, of the raft, and I thought I was going to be on there for a week. Our goal was to raise 2.5 million, which was just crazy. 2.5 million, and I wasn't going to get off the raft until we raised it. Now, what if you're watching this? You may not know this, but most big fundraisers like that have what I call a backstop donor. And what that is you sit out there for a week or whatever the fundraiser is, and if it gets a little sketchy, then there's somebody that's going to fill in the gap. So, right, if we raised 2 million and I was sitting on there after like 3 months and was going to go insane, then there'd be a backstop donor to take care of the other $500,000. We had no one. I was going to be on there till it was over. So, but we did have a lot of clarity, right? So go through that process. We had incredible clarity about our timeline. We had clarity about our overall financial goal, and we had incredible clarity about what we needed to raise on that barge minimum to get us on track to finishing in December 2020. And so we did. I got on the barge. I figured I'd be there for a week. By day 7, we had raised, I think it was $170,000 by day 7.
Oh.
170, 2.5 million. You do the math.
Not even 10%.
Yeah, and so I joked. I called my one of the board members. I said, "I'm going to be on here for like 3 or 4 or 5 months. I can't do that. I mean, the whole thing is not going the way I planned."
Yeah.
So one day, I guess it was day 7 or day 8. I was like, "Man, I got to do something different." So a friend of mine said, "Why don't you just post a Facebook Live? Just hit Facebook Live, hit the button." I'm like, "I don't do social media. I have no idea what you're talking about." So they showed me what to do, and then I hit the live button, and I said, "Hey, it's Todd Phillips. I'm out on the barge with the last well. We're trying to raise $2.5 million to reach 500,000 people in Liberia with clean water, and I'm not getting off the raft until we're done." So that's what started a really amazing deal. That first day, there was like 13, 14, 15 people watching. And I said, "I'm just going to come on here every day." So then day 9 comes, and I'm like, "Hey, how's it going? Back on the barge, blah, blah." Had no plan, no structure, nothing. A guy puts a comment in there, says, "Listen, I'll match anyone who gives any money tonight up to $10,000. And I was like, "What?" So I was reading down the comments. So somebody else popped up like 30 seconds later and said, "I'll match that with my company." So we're about 160 grand into this deal. We're on day 2 of a Facebook Live show that doesn't really exist, and we raised $20,000, right? So that's the best day we've had so far. Over the coming weeks, I was on there for 29 days. 29 days. I lived on that raft for a month. But the very last night, we raised $238,000 on a Facebook Live. And over that time frame, it was... So the first week, 3.5 weeks, so over about a 20-day time frame, we raised $2.4 million on that raft, and it was over after that 29th day, and then we finished. We raised the rest of our money and walked across the finish line in Liberia with our project on November 12th, 2020 during the pandemic.